Chihiro's journey is a journey back to self, like in the beginning of the movie, she didn't really have a good grounding in herself. She was just kind of a girl. I think Miyazaki said that the emotional climax of the movie is her taking the train by herself. That as a kid, that's a sign of growing up, of maturity, of like, you can take the train by yourself. So given the amount of time between some of Marvel's flops post Endgame, and now, especially given the writer's strike, like this is, I would say, the first movie where they decided we need to change course. We need to right the ship. And Thunderbolts, I think, is going to be that movie. As far as the story, I don't know. I don't really read the Thunderbolts comics. I have some idea about what the story is going to be because I know characters like Sentry, who's going to be kind of, at least theoretically, the villain for the movie. But yeah, I mean, the marketing looks really fun. They're comparing it to A24 movies, which is cool. Yeah. They've got like, not just comparing it, but they have a lot of people who have worked on A24 movies working on this movie, from cinematography to editing to soundtrack. I think Marvel is trying to take it seriously again. And so that's my pitch on Thunderbolts.
Busy times for people like Marvel. But let's talk about Sacred Text. Let's talk about something that's a little more established as much as it is beloved, which is back to Studio Ghibli. Ghibli.
Ghibli is just like, it's like pronouncing GIF is GIF. I'm just like,
it doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't sound right.
Ghibli.
Studio
Ghibli. Back to Studio Ghibli. Let's talk about Spirited Away.
Yeah.
And why you love it so much. So I have to shout out to my freshman year of college. And I'm going to tell you what, I did not like it the first time I saw it. I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to watch any more Ghibli.
Yeah.
I think I'm all settled. So when you put it on the list, it was almost like a brace for impact. I was like, here we go again. I think there's elements of Ghibli that I just can't get on board with, and it's my own personal problems, which are fine. Yeah. But I'm so glad you put it on your list because I loved it so much more this time than 2010.
Yeah. So I dated a girl, and her first experience watching this, she hated it.
Yeah.
Because she was younger, like she didn't get it because it's kind of a non-linear story. I mean, it's not that it's non-linear, but like the goals of the story aren't really the same that you would expect in a Western movie. This is different than Princess Mononoke, and Princess Mononoke, the story's a little linear. You've got all your characters have goals, and it kind of reaches a climax moment, and then they have to deal with it. Versus Spirited Away doesn't necessarily have that. And so this girl that I dated, she hated this movie, and she never would watch it with me but like the thing about Spirited Away is as you grow up, you start to understand the value of this movie and the value of the story.
Yeah.
And because like when I was a kid, I watched it. I liked it because it was cool because there was dragons and they're flying and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, damn, this story is like impactful. This is really important. This is an important narrative.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off base, but while watching it, this clip from a podcast or an interview or something came to mind where they're talking about trauma and traumatized brains. And this guy was like, well, you see, if you look at your life in a left to right fashion or in front of you or behind you, it means something different about how your brain is wired. And so it's like people who deal with trauma, when they talk about the past, it is in their brain or physically in front of them. They're like dealing with it. They're seeing it. He's like, healed people, it's behind them. Watching this, I was like, what are Ghibli films? Because time and past and future are just in this ramen bowl of what are we doing? Because I found it interesting of like how many locations they had or where they were going. Or like you said, I was pausing it as I went to get a drink, and I was like, wait a sec, we're still at the bathhouse and there's only this much time left. How? Why? But that's okay. It doesn't move in the same way that I think Western minds have been trained left to right, back to front. We start one place, we end another, and it needs to have some distance in between. And this does not feel that way. It's kind of like, we're going to take a step into the spirit realm and let's discover something about ourselves and find courage. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically high level for those that are listening and maybe haven't seen it or need a refresher, Spirited Away is a story of a little girl named Chihiro. Her and her family are moving to a new home, and they're driving to their new home, and they stop. They take a wrong road, They stop, they get out, and there's this archway and this tunnel, this long tunnel. And the dad is like, let's go explore. Let's go look at this thing. And Chihiro's kind of like a scared little girl. She's like, I don't know if we should be doing this. She's kind of like, she lacks courage. She lacks personality even. She's just kind of flat and kind of boring. And then they go through the tunnel, which is, that's a narrative tool for saying we're entering a new world. Like whether it's a gateway or a tunnel, like whatever, we're entering a new world. So that's a cue or an indication to the audience that the things are changed. They walk through the tunnel and all of a sudden they're in a new world, which like they don't necessarily recognize as a new world, but then they keep walking and they find a little village town, whatever. The parents eat some of the food. They get turned into pigs. Chihiro's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Yeah. And then it turns night. And then there's the introduction of the bathhouse. And Chihiro has to enter this world of the spirit bathhouse. And that's kind of the plot of the movie, is that stuff happens. And we have a sense as an audience that the ultimate goal is to leave this place and go home. But the smaller goals of what is the purpose of this bathhouse? What's the logic driving this world? We don't get.
Yeah.
There's no it's a very soft world building, meaning that like Lord of the Rings, very hard, crisp world building. Like we understand how the world operates, why it is the way that it is. Spirited Away, very soft world building. Like we don't understand why the spirits have a bathhouse. We don't understand the hierarchy of spirits. We don't understand why, Zeniba, the boss lady of the bathhouse, why she has to give anyone a job who asks. None of that is answered. It's just kind of there. And Chihiro's goals in the bathhouse are pretty unclear, apart from the larger goal we understand of she needs to go home at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're going to get too meta. There's a moment where you kind of watch it and you go, oh, this is kind of like life. We are kind of Chihiro taking on a new name in this world, Sen, and we're given a job, or we have to have a job in order to exist there. And of course, there's a question of if Miyazaki was saying more than what's on the surface, which is definitely a probability of, like Japanese women. Do they have to exist? Do they have to have a job to exist? Do they have to have a role in order to be a part of this world? I don't, that's part of it. But her meeting, Haku? Yeah.
Yeah.
Her meeting Haku, a boy that transforms into a dragon, who then later we find out is actually a spirit, and there's, he's forgotten who he is. Her having to remember her name and her parents' name the whole time, or else she forgets them. There's a question of ancestors and who came before us. There's so many different levels and different meanings to where at one point I just paused and I was like, is this girl dead? What are we talking about?
Yeah,
are we talking about reincarnation? Are we talking about slipping timelines? What's happening? And I think the confusion / the gray area, if you're mature enough or able to let it wash over you, is good, because it allows you to paint whatever extra pictures you want to without taking away from the story that's already shown on screen.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons this movie hits so hard for me, granted, I think you found it on the very meta level of like, this is very much like life, that, we find ourselves in a weird place. We have to continually remember who we are, or else the world will take our identity from us and we'll get caught up in a work that has nothing to do with us. And then you basically you watch I feel like, the movie's, it's obviously a meditation on like greed and consumerism, right? Because one of the plot points in the movie is that Chihiro lets in this spirit, No Face, who is kind of a masked spirit that has really no identity. And he enters the bathhouse. Well, he's kind of like a vampire. I don't think he could have gotten into the bathhouse without being invited into the bathhouse. And Chihiro she's just a nice kid. And so she sees No Face outside in the rain, and she leaves the door open for him to come in. And so he comes into the bathhouse, and pretty immediately he's corrupted by the energy of the bathhouse. And the energy of the bathhouse is one of greed and consumption. And No Face, because he's an opaque, no-face creature, takes on the character's traits of everyone around him. And then what you see is the entire economy of the bathhouse, or culture of the bathhouse, is people are obsessed with getting gold and will do anything and consume anything to get it. And Chihiro needs to make it through this bathhouse while remembering who she is, because if she doesn't remember who she is, she will just become like everyone else there and will just like live her life needing to get gold and hoping for someday to leave the bathhouse. But she needs to remember who she is. And obviously, you know, that's a deeply human story. But I think the reason that it hits so hard for me was because, you know, you and I both served missions.
Yeah.
And for me, serving a mission was going to a new place, essentially losing your name, your first name at least, and working in a strange place with strange rules and relying on the kindness of others to get us through. And I think that's part of why this movie hits so hard for me, is because like I feel like I've lived this.
Elder San.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean that's a fun part of the plot, is that Chihiro, when she goes talk to Zeniba doesn't want to give her a job, but somehow for some reason Zeniba has to give her a job. And part of the contract, Zeniba takes her name from her and gives her a new name. And her new name is Sen. Sen is Princess Mononoke. Sen is her new name. And there's, you know, throughout the plot, there's moments where she forgets that her name was Chihiro because everyone is referring to her and she's referring to herself as Sen so much that she forgets who she is. And there's such great like metaphor and symbolism in that. It's so tasty.
There's a little bit about it that's like loss of innocence and growing as a child, having courage, overcoming challenges, learning to be without your parents for the first time, and like you have to save them in some different ways. So I definitely like those elements. I had thought about the mission thing, and that's honestly saddening. Wow, relatable.
Yeah.
Toiling away in the spiritual bathhouse.
I mean, the reality is I remember probably, I don't know, 13 months into the mission, being at some after church social thing or whatever. And I heard a sound in the house and like my attention was grabbed by it. And I have no idea, like in the moment I was like, what is that sound? It's so familiar. And it was someone in the house was calling someone Madison because someone's name in the house was Madison. And I had been not referred to as Madison for over a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. That's my name. And it was the most surreal moment. It was so weird.
Yeah. I had a friend who we called each other first names as like a rebellious thing. We thought it was funny 6 months out or so. And later I was like, why was that rebellious? Why did that feel dirty? Like we were getting away with something. And it is that same idea of like really leaving something behind completely for whatever you're committed to. I also wonder, at least for me, knowing that Miyazaki and Ghibli, and they always kind of talk about capitalism in a certain way or consumerism like it does with here. Yeah, No Face like eating the workers. I was like, is No Face the CEO? What's happening here? Coming in here, consuming the workers, spitting them out, you know, giving fake gold. I love when Yubaba like has the gold and she's looking for her baby, which again is an odd thing, but whatever. And the gold dusts away into dirt. And I'm like, oh, it's not even thinly veiled. He's just saying it. This money, physical wealth, does not mean anything in the long run. And whatever you're getting is fool's gold. It's all fool's gold, even if it is gold.
Yeah. I mean, so there's two, I think, really important set pieces. Well, number one, as a lead into what I was about to say, is that work is a really important part of this story.
Yeah.
You know, Haku, who is the dragon boy, finds Chihiro on the bridge and he's like, why are you here? Like, you're about to disappear. And Chihiro's like, oh my gosh, I can see through my arm. So he gives her some food. And for whatever reason, food, you know, in the soft world building, soft magic is like the thing that helps her rematerialize. I'm sure there's metaphor in that. But then they cross the bridge and Haku is like, you need to find a job. In order to stay here, you need to work. And so then she has to beg the boiler man for a job. And then, you know, he's like, I've got all the workers that I need, which are these soot sprites. And he says that if the soot sprites don't work, the spell wears off and they turn back into dust. And there's something, because I don't think this movie is certainly a critique on consumption and capitalism and consumerism. I don't think it's a critique on work at all.
Yeah.
Like I think the work aspect of it is actually very important, because Chihiro before was probably spoiled and kind of flat and lacked any courage, but coming into a bathhouse and doing honest work gives her personality. It gives her strength. It gives her something, a wall to push against to prove how strong she is.
Which is not a bad lesson, and also speaks to the Japanese cultural influence in the movie and the story, right? Of like, through work, you find yourself, through work, there's some sort of duty and exploration and importance there. I guess, what did you see as Chihiro's full journey and what does it represent? Do you see it mostly as childhood to adulthood? Do you see it as personal growth? Self-discovery? What was like your takeaway this time watching where you're like, this is what I see her journey means to me?
Yeah, I think Chihiro's journey is a journey back to self, like it's the journey back to herself, because in the beginning of the movie, she didn't really have a good grounding in herself. She was just kind of a girl. She comes into this strange place, has her identity kind of taken from her, has to work through these problems, these issues. And then, so I think Miyazaki said that the emotional climax of the movie is her taking the train by herself.
Oh, interesting.
That as a kid, like that's a sign of growing up, of maturity, of like, you can take the train by yourself. Mm-hmm. And, there are definitely plot points after that, but I mean, her getting the ticket and going to take the train and trying to go get the medicine or apologize to Zeniba, Yubaba's sister, for Haku, is the emotional climax of the movie, is her sitting on that train by herself. Like when, you were a kid, doing something by yourself was like, oh, the adults trust me. I'm a big boy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is what Miyazaki said, that that's the emotional climax of the movie.
Interesting.
Is her pathway back to herself.
Well, that's a good point. She doesn't come back with her parents aged at all. She doesn't come back an adult. Mm-hmm. They're not dead for real. Mm-hmm. Does it matter that her parents are pigs? Does that say anything beyond the fact that they have to be something and lost in the mix for a while?
Oh, no, I think pigs is symbolism for just like intense consumption and just unthinking consumption, right? Because like the whole plot point is the parents come into this world and they just sit down and they're like, oh, there's food, and they just start eating it, and it doesn't belong to them. They don't understand the rules of this place. And he's even like, oh, don't worry, Daddy's got credit cards and cash. And it's as if credit cards and cash entitles you to the work of others.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something to that throughout this whole film, because the idea that the money or gold entitles you to the work of others, which clearly in this movie is a lie. And the consequence on the parents is that they are turned into pigs somehow. We don't understand how this happens, but they're turned into pigs and they go live in a pig pen, and so they're kind of like sidelined by the narrative. But then I think this is actually a really great lead into something else that I wanted to say, was that you get the two of the most important plot points, I think, in the movie are when the stink spirit comes in, mm-hmm. and when No Face comes into the bathhouse. So the stink spirit scene is Chihiro is just starting out on work in the bathhouse, and everyone's just like can feel there's some dark energy, some dark magic coming, and there's a stink spirit's coming. And Yubaba's like, uh-oh, we got a stink spirit, everyone get ready. And it's just this huge sludge monster comes in through the front door. And because Chihiro is the new girl, they're like, Chihiro, or Sen, take the stink spirit to its bath. And so she's like, okay, so it's, I mean, I can only imagine how putrid the smell is, blah, blah, blah. She takes him into the bath and gets him some bath tokens. No Face actually helps her get some really nice bath tokens, preps a bath for him, and then finds out that the spirit, because I think what is so good about the scene is it's a great situation for Chihiro to demonstrate her strength, which is compassion. Yeah. That's really her grounding piece of her identity. As Chihiro throughout the plot has chances to demonstrate compassion, she is able to reroot herself in her own identity continually. And so she gets close to the stink spirit, and then she feels the stink spirit holds her in his hand and brings her to his body. And then she sees that there's like a thorn in his side. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, we got to take the thorn out. And so then Yubaba's like, oh, maybe that's not a stink spirit. And so then everyone gets involved and helps pull the thorn out of the stink spirit. And it turns out that it's just a bunch of trash and junk, and it all spills out in, you know, some magical, bigger on the inside sort of way. And then it's revealed that the stink spirit was actually a river spirit. Yeah. And it was, you know, some mythical river spirit dragon being that just suffered the consequences of human pollution and needed help. And, you know, it's a beautiful touch that a human hand fixed the thing that humans did to it. But then as the spirit leaves, it gives, number one, it gives Chihiro a gift, mm-hmm. which is some lump of something. We don't really know, like maybe an avocado seed or something. I don't know. But it also leaves a bunch of gold on the ground. And, you know, it's like, and the order in which this happens, I think, is important, because first the stink spirit came in, he was helped. Chihiro got close enough to realize that something else was happening. They helped him. They returned the spirit to its true self, and then they were rewarded with stuff, you know. Yeah. But then you get No Face. No Face comes in. No Face sees this pattern, and what he does is he offers gold ahead of time. And it turns out to be fool's gold, but he's offering gold ahead of time. And then people, because everyone in the bathhouse wants the gold, it doesn't give them an opportunity to demonstrate compassion freely, because Chihiro wasn't doing anything for gold. She was doing something because it needed doing. And then when No Face goes in there and gets corrupted by the energies of the bathhouse, he's just offering people gold. And then he starts eating people. He starts eating everything that's in the bathhouse. He grows into gargantuan monstrous proportions and just becomes mean and like a consumption monster. Yeah. And it isn't until Chihiro gives him a piece of the river spirit's gift, the avocado seed or whatever, that he starts throwing up everything outside of him and is able to be returned to his true self. But continually, it is not greed. Greed is the thing that corrupts people, and compassion is the thing that returns people to their true selves. And those two, like, scenes of someone comes into the bathhouse and gets the goods of the bathhouse and is transformed by the work there, are, I think, are two great like metaphors of like how to engage with commerce, with compassion, with how not to do greed, how to engage with work. I think those are all great visual metaphors.
Yeah, it's interesting watching this where I was kind of like, do we lose the plot so much as adults that it takes coming back to kids' movies or animated movies to point out some of the more, I don't know, normalized or calm or simple messages like empathy and compassion? I was sitting there and I was like, I guess I can't think of that many movies where I'm like, and the end of the day, it's compassion changes the person. It's like, no, nice guy does get the girl, or, you know, action, friends overall. There's just not as enough movies, I don't think, that can convey it in the right way like this does.
Yeah.
And maybe it takes a giant stink spirit and avocado seed. Who knows? But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think some of the best parts of this movie for me are just kind of the real small touching moments of like compassionate aid that Chihiro receives from her friends, right? Like, we first are introduced to Kamaji. Kamaji is the boiler, the man in the boiler who's got 6 arms that can grow to magical lengths somehow. You know, she is clearly a scared little child in there, and he kind of takes her in, and then at some point he pretends that she's his granddaughter. And then at the end, when Chihiro needs to go find Zeniba, he gives her a train ticket that he's been holding onto for 40 years. Yeah. And it was his ticket out of there. And he, without even thinking, just gives it to Chihiro to go on this journey. And I'm just like, what a beautiful, like, just little touching moment of compassion between two characters. And then you get like the radish spirit or the turnip spirit, who kind of protects Chihiro initially in the elevator and gets her on her way without even, there's not even communication or talking there. And then you get like Lynn, who's this other human character who kind of takes on this older sister slash maid, motherly role for Chihiro. Their interactions are full of sweetness and compassion. And then you get the baby and the bird who get turned into like a little mosquito and a little rat, who are so kind of taken in by Chihiro's kindness that they would prefer to be in these magicked up forms, or they're not their true selves, in order to just be around her. And then obviously Haku is the chief demonstrator of compassion towards Chihiro, because he sees her and immediately is like, oh, okay, here's what we got to do in order to make sure that you don't disappear, that you can stay here. Even though, he's kind of being manipulated by Yubaba, it is the compassion of others is the thing that like transforms people in this movie. And I love that so much.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much I didn't get the first time until rewatching it, and I was like, oh, I was just mad. In my head, I was like, the story's about how everyone in the spirit world's a bastard, and they're all so mean to this girl, and she just can't seem to overcome the struggles. And instead, it's like, oh, not at all. I did not watch it through the right lens. Maybe I wasn't mature enough to understand what was going on and like to read it right. And instead, it's like, oh no, this speaks at least to me of Japanese culture from what I've heard and with friends at my work and otherwise, to hear of like, you keep places clean and you do it for the good of everybody else. Like a true communal community belief. They talk about recycling in Japan and why they hate foreigners moving there for many reasons, good and bad. But part of it is they have like 5 or 6 different bins, because they're like, everything needs to go perfectly into the bin. And if someone in your neighborhood discovers you're not doing it, and they will check on their walks in the morning, they will turn over your trash across your lawn, and just like everyone knows you didn't do it right.
Oh,
So my friend whose wife is Japanese, they're talking about possibly moving back, and he's like, I was one of those guys. I had my trash overturned multiple times because I was just like, well, I don't know. There's too many bins. You can't do that. You have to do it for the good of everybody. So watching this movie, I was like, oh, we see that here. A loyalty, a duty, and an empathy for each other goes beyond the self, which I don't think we see as much in, especially American, but Western storytelling of self as the hero. This is self-discovery through the group. And I do kind of love that angle and aspect, because we don't get enough of it, I don't think.
No, we don't. And I think it's also really goes to show pretty viscerally that the force that is working against the return to self, if compassion and community and kindness are the things that return us to ourselves, greed and money and losing ourselves in the pursuit of wealth is the thing that takes us away from ourselves. Because you just look at everyone in the bathhouse, you look at No Face, you look at like, it's all, people are just kind of, they're literally lost in the liminal space until they have an opportunity to find themselves.
If you're a consumerist pig, you don't have much hope.
Yeah.
Unless someone comes back to save you.
Although better a pig than a fascist. Did you ever see Porco Rosso?
No, that'll be our next one.
So that's another Ghibli movie where the guy's a pig for some reason. He's a better pig than a fascist. And I'm like, preach, bestie.
Wow. Preach.
So I think that the train ride is the emotional climax of the movie, which means that everything that happens after the train ride is just a treat for us, which I would totally agree. And I will say, heaven is having tea in your witch grandma's cottage while she gives you what you need to complete your quest. That is absolute heaven to me. Like every time when I watch that scene, I get choked up. Like I cry because her friends are spinning her a hairband made out of the magic of their friendship, their relationship, their love that she uses to tie her hair back. And Zeniba, the good witch, I mean, I guess she's the good witch. I mean, Yuba was not necessarily a bad witch, but Zeniba is the light half, I would say, is there. And she is just this grandmotherly presence that gives Chihiro what she needs to ground herself for the finishing her quest. And it's just such a nice respite and reprieve from the kind of the chaos of the bathhouse, to kind of just this quaint, like, moment in an evening in a cottage with, your grandma. Like, it's just fantastic. Yeah. And then of course the flight back, Haku is there and he is healed now. And like they fly back, and then Chihiro remembers who Haku is. And Haku is the spirit of the river that she had fallen into as a little girl, and he had saved her as a little girl. And because they had filled in the river for construction, Haku had been displaced and had forgotten who he was. And then Chihiro, by remembering who Haku is, then returns him to himself as well.
Yeah.
And then it's just this fantastic, beautiful scene where they're falling and holding hands and crying, and the music swells, and it's just fantastic. And then they fly back to the bathhouse, and Chihiro finds her parents by knowing that they aren't in this group of pigs, but they're somewhere else. And instead, they're returned to themselves, and then they return back to the real world. The parents are none the wiser, but Chihiro has had this magical spiritual experience of being returned to herself and feeling like she can move to a new neighborhood, into a new school with new friends, and feeling empowered to do so.
Yeah, it really brings it all back at the end where you're like, oh, the point of that entire story was she's a girl scared to go to a new school.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. I kind of love, and I'm honestly, there's a little bit of holy envy in my heart that growing up we didn't have a similar structure or belief system about ancestor spirits and the rest. Because watching this, I'm like, oh, Japanese culture really allows for more like spiritual teasing and trickster gods and Mother Goose rhymes that we have are like kind of funny, you know, anthropomorphic animals, whatever else. But we don't have that in our god structure or ancestors or spirits.
Yeah.
And that I think helps to unfurl widen the tapestry that is our understanding of life and earth and death and mortality, to be able to say, like, you know what? Sometimes you might just get caught in the spirit world, having to work in a bathhouse until you return the dragon water spirit back to the river, and then you can go on and move on with your life and go to school, and you'll never forget it. Wow. We just don't have the same, I think, happy accident level. I'm not even that. There's something sweet about it.
There's like a happy mischievousness in like Shintoism, where like everything can be alive. Like you even see this in, I mean, this is just punctuates Miyazaki's work, but like Totoro. You see Totoro? I mean,
we watched it.
You get the cat bus, you get the soot sprites. Totoro's like a troll tanuki raccoon guy, and he's just there to entertain these girls where their mom's in the hospital, and like it's nothing. It's not more than that. It's not more than what it is. And so Shintoism and kind of the kami, and there's spirits everywhere, and everything has spirit, is certainly a worldview that is worth envying, because in Western Christianity, our God is gold.
And maybe it speaks to like why we see the world in such a literal way, and some of the mysticism has died off. I mean, a lot of it has. You hear more people talking about fake news from Fox News or otherwise of like trans athletes, whatever else. They're like caught up in things that are not real that they're worried about. On the flip side, I think when you have this level of mischievousness, this mysticism, you're able to experience life in a different way and without going too far. Talk about Japanese stories after the earthquake and the nuclear fallout and everything else, and talking about like, oh, a spirit hopped in my taxi and I took him to his destination until he disappeared. And you're like, oh, wait.
What? What are you talking?
Have you never heard this?
No, dude.
Oh, baby. Yeah. So I will say it's beyond Facebook stories. Not that USA Today is a good place, but Oprah had like people on to talk about it. There were all kinds of different news stories. After the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in the Miyagi prefecture, that's
cool.
Sorry, folks.
I know exactly where that is.
Of course, in Japan, they talked about these phantom hitchhikers. Tons of taxi drivers reported people getting into their cars that they did not believe were actual humans, and they were ghosts. They were asking to go to places that were destroyed during the earthquake and fallout and everything else. And so they drove the taxi all the way there, and the spirit would be like, thanks so much, and would just disappear from the car, and the taxi driver would just drive home. And this was like a pretty well documented unsolved mystery. It's all over the place. People are like, after the tsunami in 2011, they're like, taxi drivers picked up tons of ghost passengers who were just unsettled, trying to get home. They were swept away. And you're like, okay, if you grew up with a worldview that fits this and that allows for it, perhaps you're allowed to have this experience. I don't know.
You know, there's just kind of more, because I think we're certainly a little away from Spirited Away at this point, but there certainly is a tightness and a rigidity to the Western Christian worldview of like it, are they angels or are they demons or are they, like if it shakes your hand, I mean, that's very Mormon, right? But like there are ways of determining the lightness or the darkness or the goodness or evilness of a thing. And that like a seraphim is different from a cherubim and all this stuff. And if you had just a looser idea of a looser like definitional system of what these things are, maybe there's enough space for like life and spirit to animate some of these experiences for you.
Yeah, can I just share one of the stories and then we'll just be done with this forever? Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2016, there was a sociology student at Tokyo Tohoku Gakuen University. His name was Yuka Kudo. He interviewed more than 100 taxi drivers in Ishinomaki, where we talked about in that prefecture, for his newspaper. And he was like, I have a thesis that they all experienced something unnatural, well, unusual, and it was connected to this earthquake and tsunami. So many said they wouldn't talk to him, but one of the stories that he loved was a young woman hailed a cab near a public transport station wearing a heavy winter coat, even though it was summer and balmy and warm. Already, we love the spookiness of this campfire story. She said, can you take me to Minamahama, please? She asked the driver, and so the driver's like, there's nothing at Minamahama. After a few moments of silence, she goes, have I died? Am I dead? And the driver turns around and she's no longer there. Boom. She's recognized she's dead. She's gone. In another incident, a young man asked a taxi driver to go to, I'm so sorry, Japanese folks, Hayoriyama Mountain. And when they arrived at the destination where his house was supposed to be, that it was not there, the man vanished from the back of the taxi. And these taxi drivers just expect that they're going to pay the fare themselves. They're like, I have paid my debt to the ancestors by taking this person, ferrying them off. It's beautiful. Wow. It's really beautiful.
I mean, just to bring it back a little bit, it reminds me when Chihiro's taking the train, there are these ghostly figures, ghostly humanoid figures in the train with her. We have no idea. We're given no answers about who these people are.
All the better.
They're just, I mean, you can kind of see it from like a childlike point of view of like, if you're a kid taking the train by yourself for the first time, all these people around you are faceless, big adults who are kind of scary. Right. Yeah. But then, in an ancestor sort of way, like, I don't know, maybe in the logic, I don't know how much logic there is to the world of the soft world building of Spirited Away, but maybe you get a lot of spirits who are just trying to find their way moving on. And there's some weird train system underneath the bathrooms that gets in there. Dude, that's freaky. That's cool. That's really gives me chills.
It makes you want to, at least for me, it makes me want to believe something a little deeper about, or more mystical about it all. And I think Spirited Away, perhaps I was just a little too logical Western when I first watched it, of like, this is weird. This is dumb. Why are they in a train? Why is there a bathhouse? What? Anyways. Having had some time away from that all, it's much better this watch. And I think anyone who's ready for a good movie, ready for a good watch, has not seen this, or if you have before, give it another watch on Max, because my tone was completely changed and yours is still the same. You love it.
I just love it. It's so good.
Any last thoughts before we go?
No, just that I love this movie. It's about the human journey, and don't try and understand it. Just feel it. And the music. Oh my gosh, the music is so good.
So good.
This is Joe Hisaishi. This is one of his best, I think.
Yeah. Definitely. Quick trivia before we're gone. Won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2003. It's the only hand-drawn, non-English language animated film to win in that category. And I had to rethink that. I'm like, is that true? But no, it's hand-drawn, not computer animated.
Yeah.
Good on it. Over $395 million at the box office worldwide. The highest grossing Japanese film in history for 2 decades, till Demon Slayer a couple years ago. What a good one. A good one. We'll have that in the show notes. We'll be back next month with another secret text. And until then, watch good movies.